Hey everyone, this is Sperry, and today I'm going to be making a video that I've been wanting to make for a while. I just wanted to take some time to think about how I wanted to put this together, make sure I made it as good as possible for you all. But this video is going to be a comparison between, in my mind, the three biggest current Toontown servers at this exact moment, January 24th, 2017. By the time I'm watching this, nobody knows what state the servers will be in. There could be more servers. One or more of these servers could potentially go down. We really don't know how the future will affect this. But right now I'm going to just be talking about the three biggest servers in the game, Toontown Rewritten, Operation Desert Storm, and Project Altis. And what I'm going to try to do is create a comparison between these servers on some different categories, compare and contrast them, and give you guys my personal opinion on these areas, and maybe potentially give you some advice as a viewer as to the pros and cons to playing on each server. So if you particularly happen to like or dislike a server, this would be a great video for you to leave a comment. You can tell me why I'm wrong. I'd love to hear why. I am going to just be giving my thoughts on all three servers, and I'm interested to see what you guys have to think. So instead of just going ahead and leaving a dislike and calling me an idiot, why don't you go ahead and leave a comment. You can take as much time as you'd like to explain to me why I'm wrong, and I will listen to you. So that's all I'm going to say. Let me just go ahead. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to jump right into my opinions on these servers on different categories, kind of just in a broad sense, what I think of all of them at the end as well. So let's look at all three of them. We've got Toontown Rewritten, which has been around the longest. I believe, I don't know the exact number of years. I don't want to say a number because then I'll seem like an idiot, but it's been around the longest. And then you've got these other two servers which have been around pretty much a couple months maximum, really only available to the public, I'd say, for less than 2 months. And both the other servers are still pretty far into beta, whereas Toontown Rewritten, I think, might still be in beta, but is a bit more developed in terms of just how long it's been around, how they've built it up a little bit. So, TTR obviously is your more vanilla server, more like the original game. And then ODS and Altis are both kind of hybrids in the sense where they combine newer features, more new content, much more ambitious in that regard, at the cost of not having as big of a player base, and possibly not being quite as stable, and just taking bigger risks in general. By far, those two servers are. And we're going to get into a lot of stuff, so don't make any prejudgments about my opinions on each server. You probably know what I think about these a little bit if you've watched my other videos, but we'll get into that. So, first and foremost, we're just going to evaluate them in a very objective way, which is size, player base. So, from what I've seen, it looks like Toontown Rewritten, I know I made a meme video before about how it was dying in population, and I still believe that to be true. It is stagnating pretty heavily, and I think there is definitely a portion of that is due to the fact the game's aging, but it's also just because they're not adding new content. Whatever, we can debate that point. Essentially, Toontown Rewritten, you're going to find enough people at any given time to do pretty much whatever you want, unless you play at very inopportune hours. If you play during these inopportune hours, you are going to have some trouble. But if you don't, you're pretty much going to have enough people on to get whatever you need done. There's a lot of people leveling alternative tunes. There's a lot of people grinding each boss, especially VP. You'll find a few for CFO as well. For CJ, CEO, you're probably going to need to make some Toon HQ groups, but you'll still be able to actively work those suits pretty much no problem with complete randoms. So you're looking at probably a minimum of 400 players at the absolute least, and it'll go up to like 1,500 during like maybe peak times, maybe even more during like holidays, whatever, but essentially you're looking at a portion that for the current time being is healthy enough to not be quite as much as the original game maybe, but basically you've got an active server going in terms of that game size. Now, Project Altis has got something like 300 to 500 people on during the more busy times, and sometimes maybe like 100 to 150 if it's like kind of a downtime, there's a lot of server instability. So Project Altis, you've actually got, again, a server population that is pretty much sustainable to do things with because everybody's making those new tunes and grinding up. However, there's a lot of variability in where these tunes are, and it's not quite as secure also in the sense that if you're grinding really hard, you're probably not going to find as many people to play with because a lot of those tunes won't be late game, etc., etc. But Project Altis, you can probably still find some randoms to do help. Plus, if you combine the Discord, you'll be alright in terms of player size, but you will not be able to just kind of have the experience of not needing to use an IRC or a Discord or anything like that. You're probably going to maybe need to get some help on a forum once in a while to get things done. Now, ODS, you're going to have some more serious issues with the server population, at least at the current moment. What I mean by this is that ODS, during one of its downtimes, might have like 40 people on. During its peak time, might have 150. Now, I still think the server is very playable, and you can get a lot of enjoyment, but you need to have one of two ways to get the most out of the server. The first one being playing with a group of your friends that you come into the server with, and the second one being a member of the Discord. If you get to know some people and you ask for help on there, a lot of times you're going to be able to still get a lot of things done with that group on the Discord. If you're not using the Discord, you're going to have a little bit of trouble organically finding your groups. So I will definitely explain that as a caveat. If you just want to AFK zone out and not have to think about getting your groups, ODS and Altis are probably not your ideal servers, especially ODS in that regard. But if you're okay with talking to some people on a Discord to get something together, all three servers at this time, you'll be okay population-wise. You just might need to rely on yourself a little bit more in Altis and ODS, but they do thankfully have some nice gag multipliers on the XP to help you out with that. So, that's all I'm going to say about size. Pretty objective, not a lot of bias, I think, in terms of that. I gave a pretty accurate statement of the size of all three games. Now let's talk about stability. So, TTR, by far, of the three servers, I have to give it credit for, is the most stable. You will basically not really have any problems. The server very rarely goes down, very rarely gets reset, unless they add some shitty update that breaks the game like they did a while ago with the damn Toonfest. You're pretty much good to go in terms of stability. And the game does not lag pretty much no matter how many people are on, because the servers are pretty deep and pretty well funded. So you're good in that regard, but again, there is an issue with the stability where if you have a graphics card that's not as compatible as some other ones, you're going to run into the issue of the server just stops working, stops responding, and you crash. And that is an almost guaranteed issue with TTR under certain graphics cards, just because of some incompatibilities with the engine. Now, I'm not sure how these compatibility issues transfer over to the other servers, just because on any private server, it's basically you want to refresh your game after you finish doing something. I found to be the case for all three. So, none of the servers have perfect stability, but TTR will be the most stable, for sure, in terms of just being stable in the game. Now, one benefit to Altis and ODS is that these servers have higher FPS counts, where you can get up to 60 FPS, have it look very crisp and clean, smooth throughout. It will be a very nice looking game while you're playing it at those peak times. I don't have a lot of experience playing Altis directly compared to the other two servers, but in terms of just FPS, you're pretty much good to go on those two. But again, for the stability on these smaller servers, you're going to have some major issues on Altis where the game will get shut down frequently. The game has gotten shut down multiple times due to some security stuff we're going to get to later, don't worry. And because of these shutdowns, this will impede your ability to play the way you want to. So, I think that is going to be something that you should be aware of, is that you have by far the highest chance of having just impeding, game-breaking obstacles that get in the way of your playing experience on Altis, especially for now. We have not seen a track record of the server being stable for a consistent and continued period of time thus far. We will see if that changes in the future. So, I would probably give Altis the lowest grade on stability. ODS has the unfortunate issue of having some mild memory leaks, especially with the phishing, and also just playing the game for long periods of time. If you refresh, you're pretty much good to go. However, the server does occasionally lag because ODS does not have quite the same resources for server. I would probably just say the most funding, as these other two games do. So as a result, ODS, you are a bit more likely to crash on ODS than TTR, And more importantly, the server probably does lag more than the other two servers do. But I can tell you for a fact, ODS has basically no district resets in the game, unlike Altice. Altice has very frequent district resets, even in the very short time I've played it. ODS, you're pretty much never going to have districts get reset, just occasionally the game lags. Basically, the developers just go in and they'll fix it in like a second. These developers are very good at keeping the game working when issues do arise, but because the server is new and not quite as well funded, there are going to be some growing pains you should be aware of before you make your commitment, I suppose. And now, a big part of what we're going to be talking about today is going to be the gameplay, the player experience, what you get out of the server playing on it. So what I mean by that is, on TTR, you can feel pretty rest assured that you're going to have a future on the game for at least a couple more years, just because of how established TTR is, the nostalgia, the fact that the game's been out and it's been very consistent thus far. I have my own personal issues with the game, and you can watch my video why I think TTR is dying and all this other stuff if you're really interested in that. But from an objective point of view, you're going to be able to play this game for enough time to actually enjoy maxing your toon, even if you start fresh right now. So that should be something you consider when making your decision. I doubt that many people haven't played TTR if they're watching my videos, but just in case. The stability looking forward into the game should be worth noting. We're going to get more into some of the new content type stuff like that, but I think just understanding the future of the game, or at least what you need to know right now if you're playing, is good to know. So I would say TTR is good in that sense. However, I would not ever expect new content from TTR. They've just been incredibly lazy about this in the past. I don't know why they would ever change in the future. That they really put all their energy into, I guess, maintaining stability and also doing a lot of nothing, in my opinion, given their resources. But that's neither here nor there. Bottom line is TTR, you'll be able to play the game for a while. Don't expect anything new to ever come. Now, we've got to look at Altice, which I would just not recommend playing right now for one simple reason. Your toon's going to get reset. Until they get to beta and Altice, they're just going to straight up reset your toon. So this video is recorded while they're in alpha. In my opinion, it makes no sense why to play a game where you're just going to lose your progress anyway. Maybe if you just want to have fun. Honestly, I think you guys are just better off watching like Mega Snoop stream, watching Gag Strategist, watching Ben Ryko. Watch one of your other content creators play the game for you. Don't waste the time to actually grind through it yourself, because at the end of the day, you're just going to lose your progress anyway. So, my personal advice to you would be, I would not recommend playing Altice right now just because they're going to reset your toon. Like, again, that's just my personal perspective. If you don't care about your toon getting reset, go ahead and play it. But, that's what I think. Now, ODS, you're going to have some interesting dynamics here. ODS will not reset your toon if you play right now, so you can feel pretty assured in that regard. Now, ODS does have, I guess, a little bit less money than some of the other servers, but I can tell you that I have a lot of faith in their development team and their community. I don't think ODS is going to go down anytime soon. I can't promise that. I don't know anything behind the scenes, but based on the faith I have in the team that I've gotten to know a little bit, I believe the game will be around long enough for you to enjoy it if you play now. So, and in addition, you actually get to experience some new content, experience something fresh, while also not getting to lose your toons. So at this exact moment, if you just want to try out a new server, maybe freshen something up from TTR, I think ODS is a much better bet for something to make your toon on right now if you just want to play. Now, if you're interested in Altice, that's great. I would recommend you stick to Rewritten until they actually get you to the beta, because right now you're really kind of just wasting your time. And again, these are just my opinions. If you want to fuck around on the server, that's completely your prerogative. So, we kind of got that covered as far as what the logistics of the servers are concerned. Now let's look at the community. So for the community for each game, TTR community's pretty garbage, honestly. That's not even really TTR's fault, it's just a mass market server. You've got a lot of kids playing on, you've got a lot of randoms, you've got a lot of people with egos, you've got to deal with a lot of uncoordinated people that can't be held accountable for their actions. One of the best parts about the more Discord-oriented system of Altice and of ODS is that people are more held accountable for their behavior and their actions. If they act like jerks, they're not going to be able to get groups because other toons won't want to play with them. This means people behave in more civil ways, and they also develop more real relationships on these other servers. On TTR, it's really just a crapshoot. You can make friends on here for sure. You actually have a wider pool of potential friends to make. But there are a lot of downsides to the TTR community, namely the minimum age of these and the lack of accountability and just... I know people who've greened like nonstop on TTR who've done horrible, rude behavior. Nothing ever happens to them just because of how big it is and how big the bureaucracy is. I think the community is definitely the biggest downside to TTR, along with the lack of new content if you're an experienced player. Now, I would actually say I don't have a lot of experience with Altice. I've heard different things about the way the community is. But honestly, I think the biggest way to sum up the community is that it's mostly the fans of streamers. You got your fans of Mega Snoop, your fans of Gag Strategist, your fans of Royco, fans of Loopy Goopy G, all of them. They largely make up this community of the streamers. We're going to get to that. I'm going to have a specific section where I just talk about why Altice has pretty much monopoly on all the content creators and streamers. Aside from a few, Gag's not really only playing that server, and I don't even really play Altice at all. So there are a few of us that don't really play, but for the most part, every streamer content creator flocks to Altice, and that will be covered in a bit. So, really, if you like those content creators, you're probably going to be okay with the community there. But I have to say, I cannot say enough how much I really believe that the community of ODS is the best part of the game. Because there is a close-knit community of the people who play the game the most, who talk on the Discord. Just getting to know the people, it's a breath of fresh air, and I feel like if you really devote yourself to talking to some people, you have a real chance to make some good friends on this game. I would definitely recommend you at least give it a chance. I'm sure that the personalities on the game are not for everyone, but everyone from the developers to the admins to the people in general chat, I have to say I've had a very positive experience. And that's really what's drawn me and kept me with the ODS server, is the close-knitness of the community, because it is relatively small but still big enough to get things done. Really, as far as I'm concerned, that is by far the biggest selling point of ODS, along with the new content. And Altice, I haven't experienced the community a whole lot personally, so I can't tell you for sure, but you're probably good to go if you like those streamers. Heard some mixed reviews about the developers, admins, but I won't get too much into it because I don't have any first-hand experience, and I don't want to slander them in any regard. So, let's look at the changes, what they've actually changed from TTO in each of the games. TTR, basically jack shit. They added some quality of life features, actually almost all of which were solid, good changes, but that's really about it. They added some nice QOL changes. You will appreciate these quality of life things like the double XP regardless of invasion, for your merits, etc. They've added the teleport when you get like to level 12, all that stuff. These features are pretty much standard in every private server at this point, and I will give Rewritten credit for making some good changes with the ones they've made. However, they basically add no new content to the game. You're never going to get any new content from the developers of this game. I would not expect it, and that's going to be, I would say, a major disadvantage of TTR as well, as if you've played the game before. If you've completed TTO, you're not going to really get a new experience in TTR. You're just going to get to relive some nostalgia. That's about it. Now, the changes in Altis and ODS are really massive in scope and really exciting on both servers. What I will say is that pretty much everything across the board ODS added, I love. Honestly, their system of changing, they changed the way fishing works. I'm a huge fan of the way it works. They need to fix that memory leak, but their system for fishing is very cool. ODS has also added a system where you can teleport directly to the shopkeepers instead of walking. None of the other servers had that mechanic, and it is incredibly useful. I'm not going to get into all of the things because my mind's a little cloudy, but I can just tell you that ODS did a very good combination of a lot of quality of life changes as well as a lot of new content. They have lots of new art available for their TechBot HQ, already available to anyone to look at. And it looks very promising. They've actually got a playground for their new HQ that you can go and walk around in. And really, I can tell you for sure that I expect that to come out. They have made massive progress already. And so, I have to say that the new content on ODS is really a huge selling point. Now, Project Altis also has a lot of new content. They have the level 6 buildings. They have a completely new task line, which actually is something that would really intrigue me. One thing I'm disappointed about in the new task line is how monotonous the leveling is. From what I've heard, it's a lot of cog-specific tasks. I'm not really I understand that it makes it cool and new, which is a good thing, but there's also the other coin where it makes it a lot more grindy, and you have to spend a lot of time looking for things, and that's not really the most interactive part of the game, is when you're running between streets, looking for your damn fetch quests, and looking for specific cog types. A lot of stuff like the micromanagers and Donald's task, but just on steroids even worse. So, mixed bag for me on the quests. Also, on both ODS and Altice, you can pick the order you want to get your gags in, from TTC all the way up, which is a very nice feature. Alright, had to briefly pause the video because the roommate walked in. No biggie, as I was saying, you can pick your order, so you don't have to do that whole thing like you're going to have to do in TTR, where Toontown Central, you choose between Tune-Up and Sound. You can pick Trap first if you want. The game really doesn't care. It's going to let you pick whatever you would like. And that's a feature standard in both ODS and Altice. Really, both of those games, you're going to find a breath of fresh air, I believe, in terms of their new content and features. Just flat on the board if we don't count any other factors, like let's say, theoretically, the game was perfectly secure, etc., etc. But, also, you've got, in Altice, you can choose the Zap Gag track, because they added it. Zap Gags are really weak. They're kind of cool, but I've done the math on them. They are exceptionally weak on paper. It's basically a worse version of Drop. And I don't think it's worth taking. In fact, if I was going to play on Altice, I would suggest you go Zapless. Unlike 99.9% of the population, if you go Zapless, you will be the strongest tune in the game. I can assure you of that. Anyways, so you've got some various new content in those regards. You're going to have a new HQ, you got a new type of cog, tech bots in ODS, you've got the board bots of Altis, and you've got the new HQs. I have a feeling that TechBot HQ will hit first, but I have also probably have a feeling just based on the amount of money and developers behind Altis, you're probably eventually going to get BoardBot HQ as well. So those are worth noting. Now that we've talked about all this, let's get into the real juicy one. This is going to be security. So this is something you'd think would be relatively straightforward, right? I mean, okay. So, first of all, we're just going to talk about each of them. TTR, you're not going to have any real issues with security because it's a huge server. They've got it encrypted, secured. Really just no issue as far as security is concerned. ODS is a small server, very small. Only a few developers, only a few admins, etc. But their security is damn good. Nothing's happened so far. I'm sure there's people with grudges. In fact, I've seen that there have just been reports of Rant people, just trying to hack the server, stir up some shit. And nothing's worked so far because they've done a good job with their security as well. Now, for all I know, any of this shit could change in the future. I'm just telling you, as of the time this video is posted, I have a lot of faith. ODS has been great with their security, so has TTR. Altis, on the other hand, has been massively, unfortunate in that regard. There have been a lot of minor to major breaches in the security. You've got databases being forced to be reset. And you've just got a very strange system. I don't know all the specifics of what's going on, so I'm not going to try to bullshit you and say that I do. What I can tell you is that regardless of what anyone tells you, regardless of what the Altis staff say, I would be very cautious about playing on the server until there is a very long, sustained period of no weird, hacky server security issues going on, because it's very unlikely, unless you have a perfect understanding of the security for yourself, that there could be undetermined issues, because there's already been multiple issues with the security of the game. I don't expect those were completely resolved. Now, maybe they have been. Hopefully, eventually, when they fix all the security, we get a sustained period where the game actually runs properly. It certainly is a bad look for your game to have those security issues. I'm sure it hurt Altis's prestige in a lot of people's eyes, quite understandably. My advice to you would be, unless you believe you have a full personal understanding of the security issues and you have faith in them directly, and you're not taking the word of somebody else to tell you that the security is okay. If you actually believe it is okay after doing your own research, then play the game. But if you're like me, you're not so sure about those things, I would wait at least a few months to make sure the security is good before you risk yourself by playing that game. And also, you might just end up having to get your tunes reset. There's just little issues to big ones. And so be very cautious for a while, I would say. Just make sure that all the security is good before you play the game. And I don't think there's enough real evidence to support that as a 100% fact. for Altice right now. Now, to the developers. You know my opinions of some of these, you don't know my opinions of others. So, the developers of TTR. I don't really approve of the direction they're going. I don't think they have done a great job adding new stuff to the game. Obviously, getting the game out in the first place was pretty good. They did some good work to make that happen, but since then, I don't think they've done the most they can with their resources. Just my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of the developers of TTR. Certainly, though, they've been pretty good about being honest people, I suppose. Being very straightforward about really important things. I mean, sure, maybe they'll lie about, like, a content update, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a game. You don't have anything to question them on. No ethical concerns, nothing like that. Really, they're just kind of lazy, in my opinion. You're good to go with the developers, but they're nothing to write home about, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the developers for ODS, I would write home about. They're very cool people. They will talk to you, even as a pleb. If you come onto their server, they will talk to you. You can ping them, you can talk to them, you can have discussions with them, they can joke with you back and forth. You've got some good variety of the people. You've got Dizzier, who's a little bit more of a jokester. He doesn't take everything so seriously. He's a funny guy. Enjoy talking to him. You've got Super Tricky, who's a very compassionate fellow. Very friendly. Really good modeler. I mean, you've got Michael, who I feel like is kind of, in some ways, I don't know exactly how you would describe Michael, in just one way, but again, very nice guy, very friendly. I enjoy talking to him. And all three of them, in particular, there's probably other developers too that I haven't directly, messaged on the Discord. I don't know exactly who designs what, so there's probably other people that I don't know that would be developers, but just in general, all the developers of the game are very friendly, all the admins. I've talked to most of the admins and the staff just by getting to know them through Discord alone, and I've enjoyed what I've seen. Now, Altice is the most complicated in this regard, because you've just got a massive conglomeration. They've got 50 people working for them. And one of the reasons why Altice is as successful as it's been on its launch is because they give special privileges to a lot of streamers and content creators who support them. Now, I'm going to talk about this very cautiously to not mislead you or give you false information. What I mean by this is that if you're a streamer on Altice, you get the special privilege, you can have a custom name, you get admin commands, I believe you can ask for them. Not 100% sure on that, but I've heard you get special commands. You get access to the game when it's down and other people don't. You basically get to talk with all the developers one-on-one. You get to listen in on their calls. You basically get to be an honorary member of their staff without actually having to have any of the responsibilities or work. So that's kind of the concrete part. We've also got a lot of instances of certain members of the developer team paying streamers money, and they're not saying it's to support their game, they're just saying it was out of the kindness of their heart. In my opinion, if a developer of a game is paying someone who plays their game as a sign of goodwill, that would be them paying them to support their game, which, by the way, is completely fine if it's disclosed. I have no problem with a paid promotion of the game to streamers. It really wouldn't be an issue if they just said, if Dubito came out and said, I'm paying my streamers an undisclosed salary to support the game. I would not have a problem with that. That's great as far as I'm concerned. However, having secret payments and then not disclosing them is a little bit more sketchy, not as cool as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not just saying that because I don't have a contract with them and many other people do. Maybe, maybe not. Those contracts obviously are a little bit harder to prove, and I won't speculate on them too much. But Dubito did get into a massive donation war on Smirky's stream, donating very large amounts of money to Smirky and matching them to charity, which is a good thing. It's great. I know the game in general, they get some money for charity, which is a good thing. No one can dispute that. Certainly Dubito has some money to spend. But the part that I am not personally a fan of ethically is, regardless of how he phrases it, Dubito has given massive amounts of money to streamers. At least Smirky, if you don't want to say other streamers, just Smirky. And he's given him that money and not closed it as a partnership or a sponsorship. He said it was just out of the goodness of his heart, no ulterior motive. Nothing like that. Solely just gave them money only for the reason of supporting someone who he personally likes. I think it's a little bit sketchy. I would prefer if he just said, I'm giving blank blank money for blank blank reasons. There's a reason why sponsorships are usually disclosed on YouTube nowadays for videos. And it's for that reason. Because it's important to have disclosure in that regard. There's nothing wrong with supporting a game. I've played many games that have YouTube sponsorships to get them going. When I started playing Town of Salem, it was by watching a sponsored video from a YouTuber that was disclosed. So what I would want Dobito to do, or any member of Altice, would be to just disclose if they're paying anyone, say it's to sponsor the game, and just leave it at that. Don't try to be wishy-washy. And really, I've heard that if you ping Dobito on the server, he bans you. Maybe understandable if their server's bigger. I've heard mixed reports. You should investigate them for yourself. I don't want to tell you to make up your mind. But I can tell you that I believe you will have the best experience directly communicating with the developers and having them help you out if you play ODS. Just my opinion, you should do your own research. So, and also, by the way, I have no proof if any of the other YouTubers have contracts or not with Dobito. All I know is that Smirky was given a large amount of money, supposedly not as a partnership. You can decide what you think about that. It's in his past broadcast, unless he deleted it. Definitely, I hope he wouldn't delete it. That would be a little sketchy by Smirky. I don't think he would delete his past broadcast, but you can find where he was given all the money by Dobito. Might be on his top donations as well. Not sure. But point being that there's some unknowns as far as money being given to the content creators. And it is a little bit suspicious how almost every big channel, in my mind, has so passionately defended Altice, really stuck their leg out for them, and had only been playing that game. It might just be because of those streamer benefits that I told you about. There could also be money exchanged. I don't want to speculate on too much. That's really for you to decide. But the fact that there was that Smirky thing going on, you should at least be aware of that. So, now we're looking at the future of the different games. What I'd expect. TTR is going to essentially exist for a long time, not really add anything. Just your vanilla Toontown experience. If that's what you want, that's the server I would play on. Now, if you're interested in playing with your favorite streamers, if you're a big Mega Snoop fan, you're a big Gag fan, you are a big Ben Royko fan, whatever streamer you support, Smirky, I forgot to mention him before, I feel bad about that, he's definitely one of the biggest streamers, but if you support one of these big streamers, you want to play alongside them, you want to be involved in what they're doing, I think Altice is the best server for you. Also, if you're either not as concerned about security or you've done that research for yourself and you believe that it's secure, which I have my own personal reservations about, you might find that the new content and the population of a server with the new content might be the best fit for you. And for ODS, I would recommend that server to anyone who is interested in playing as a small, tight-knit community where there's a lot of new content, a lot of really nice people, very nice developers, and you really get this feeling of nostalgia in my mind. The best way I could describe it would be a much lower drama version of TTI with a better server, as far as the server doesn't lag the fuck out as much, and there's more new content than TTI, and I feel like the community is a lot better and more inclusive than TTI was. So really, in my mind, just a much better version of TTI being redone. So if that's what you're looking for, if that sounds like something fun to you, an extension of the original game, I would check it out. If you're really interested as longevity being your number one priority, probably not the best server for you to play on. But again, those are just my opinions. Hopefully you will decide for yourself which server is the most fun to play on. And that's really about it. I just want you guys to have the facts, as well as my opinions, my commentary. Whatever server you guys decide to play on is great for me. You're probably going to see largely ODS content, mainly because I have played TTR to death, as well as the original game to death. And because of the community, as well as just my own most personal interest in that server, I'm playing ODS right now. Now, for the future of Altice, I think that's also a very interesting question. Because, obviously, ODS, you know, it's like TTI. There's no absolute guarantee it'll last forever, but I have faith in it being around for a while. I can't really tell you too much because I have no idea how the finances work. Altice has a lot of money, apparently, because they're giving so much to streamers. I don't think they're starved at all in terms of money, which will help their server. However, the security issues remain a red flag. We have to see if those get better in the future. If there's a long period of stable security, and we get to beta where your tunes are no longer reset, and the developers prove to maybe keep their noses clean for a while and do a good job, if all three of those conditions are met, I will give Altis a chance in beta. I'll play it, I'll see if I like it in beta, not going to play an alpha, not going to take a sponsorship, anything like that, but if the game makes it to beta, and it makes all those improvements and there's consistency, I will give it a chance, and possibly explore playing it because some of the new content looks fun. That's all I've got to say. So right now you can expect mostly ODS from me, as well as some generic videos, just talking about the game in general, or some off-topic stuff like those reaction videos I used to make. Going to be looking to mix up the content a little more rather than just having it be a Let's Play of ODS. That's all I gotta say for this. This is a long damn video. Thank you all for checking it out. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, YouTube.